2021 was a wild year for Iowa. The Hawkeyes rose as high as number 2 in the country, but then lost back-to-back games in blowout fashion to Purdue and Wisconsin, won out, made the Big Ten championship before getting blown out by Michigan, and then ultimately lost their bowl game to Kentucky to finish the year at 10-4. The Hawkeyes once again have a very solid team, but the question is, can they win the Big Ten West again in 2022? So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys, ready to predict, analyze, and break down Iowa's schedule and record for this upcoming college football season. You look at Iowa, guys, again, 10-4, wildly inconsistent. Very strong start. Struggled in blowout fashion. 3 blowout losses. Out of their 4 losses, 3 of them were in blowout fashion. And you look at Iowa and the numbers brought to you by College Football Encyclopedia, you can see where the glaring issue is. It's the offense. That was the issue for Iowa last year. Honestly, the fact they won 10 games and won the West is extremely impressive considering the Hawkeyes had the 121st ranked offense in the country. This is a team that was averaging just 180 passing yards per game. Only averaged 123.6 rushing yards per game, their lowest total since 2012. This is a team that needs major improvement from their quarterback in Spencer Petras. They need improvement from him because the 2 quarterbacks last year, in Petras and Alex Padilla, threw for 12 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. And that's just not going to cut it. It's just not. The defense, though, for Iowa, that was the strength of them last year. That's what kept them in all of these games. 17th nationally in defense, guys. They were plus 11 in the turnover margin. They led the nation with 25 interceptions and forced 30 total turnovers, allowed just 19.2 points per game. The defense was loaded, and they're loaded again in 2022 with 8 starters back. The back 7 certainly going to be the strength, led by Riley Moss at cornerback. The linebacking core, the secondary, going to be the major areas of strength there. The defensive line is just one that has to improve a little bit. Iowa, again, will have one of the better defenses within the conference in the nation, but is that going to be enough to win the Big Ten West for the 2nd straight year? You take a look at the schedule, guys. It is tough. It's a very, very tough game, and that's right out of the gate when they face South Dakota State. Many people would be quick to chalk that up as a quick victory. It's not. South Dakota State, guys, the Jackrabbits of the FCS have consistently been one of the better FCS programs. They are not afraid to play anybody. Their brothers, upstate, North Dakota State, aren't afraid to play anybody either, and a few years ago beat Iowa at Kinnick Stadium. I do believe Iowa does defeat the Jackrabbits, but it will not be easy, and it will not be in blowout fashion. I do believe they beat the South Dakota State, and I do believe they beat Iowa State and Nevada. They won the next 2, so they're 3-0. The Iowa State game obviously could be the toughest of the 3, but the Hawkeyes have won 6 straight games over the Cyclones, including a 27-17 victory last year. And you look at Iowa State, guys, how much they lost offensively and defensively, now having to come to Kinnick, which, as we all know, is one of the most difficult places to play in the country. I just don't think it's in the cards for them to snap that losing streak. So Iowa, guys, is 3-0. They're a top 25 team heading into conference play when they start off against Rutgers. A couple of years ago, many would be quick to chalk this up as a quick victory for Iowa, right? Oh, it's Rutgers, win, done, moving on. Not so fast. Not so fast. This is a major trap game for the Hawkeyes again. Because, look, Iowa, guys, defensively is phenomenal. They're going to stay strong. Offensively, I don't know if they're going to take that next step forward. You take a look at Rutgers. Greg Schiano is trying to revive this football program. Defensively last year, Rutgers was not too bad. Offensively for Rutgers, they needed some improvement, and they've got it in a new quarterback in Gavin Wimsatt. This is the best offense that Schiano has fielded in his 2 years in the second stint that he's been at Rutgers. Best one yet. And I believe all those pieces coming together, plus home field advantage, that Rutgers upsets Iowa. And go ahead, bash me in the comments, say I've lost credibility, say I'm an idiot. Go ahead. Here's the thing, Rutgers, guys, last year, they were competitive. Look at their game against Michigan in the Big House. Only fell to them 20-13. The defense hung with them. And why did they hang with Michigan so well in the Big House? Because Michigan, first off, credit to Rutgers' defense, at the time struggled offensively. And Iowa will struggle offensively majorly again in 2022. At home, against a Rutgers, at home, facing an Iowa team that will struggle offensively, facing an Iowa team that's only strength is defense. As long as Rutgers takes care of the football, and I believe they will, they're going to pull off this upset. And I feel confident about that. 3-1 for Iowa heading into the home game against Michigan. Now go ahead and say I've lost more credibility because they're going to beat Michigan. they're going to beat Michigan, and here's why. Yes, they lost to Michigan 42-3 in the Big Ten championship game, but a lot had changed there. Iowa was faltering. They were struggling. No one was giving them a fighting chance against the Wolverines, and rightfully so. Michigan took advantage of that, won, made the college football playoff. Now the game is at Kinnick Stadium, a potential night game at Kinnick Stadium, which again, as we all know, is one of the most difficult places to play in the country. A few years ago, Michigan, a top 5 team, came into Kinnick and lost. Was it 13-11, something like that? They lost to Iowa. I believe the Hawkeyes can do it again. Why? Because Michigan, while they did have a top 25 offense in the country last year, is going to sputter against his Iowa defense. Kirk Ferentz is going to whip this team back into shape after that Rutgers loss. He's going to have to prepare. He's going to say, hey, the hopes of winning the Big Ten West or everything are not over, but if you lose to Michigan, they pretty much are. And I think they're going to be able to take down a Michigan team that also defensively loses so much from last year. So home field advantage, owning the defensive edge, I think Iowa can play their style of ball at home and take down a good Michigan team. 4-1. They go on the road and take down Illinois. 5-1. They beat Illinois 33-23 last year. I think it's about the same margin of victory now. Champaign, not a tough place to play by any means. Brett Bielema is improving the Fighting Illini, but they're not going to be nearly enough to take down Iowa, especially with the strength of their defense. Illinois had one of the worst offenses in the country last year, and they'll struggle again. So they win that game, go into their bye week, and then, of course, go on the road to take on Ohio State, where we believe they fall. Ohio State, number 1 offense in the country, in the Horseshoe, in Columbus. I don't care who you are. That is a tougher place to play than Kinnick, and I just don't think that they're going to be able to pull off this win, guys. A couple of years ago, yes, Iowa did beat Ohio State, but that was at Kinnick. Not going to win now. So they fall to Ohio State. They're going to beat Purdue they're going to beat Northwestern. They beat the Wildcats 17-12 last year. But you want to talk about teams that really aren't going to show much growth from last year to this year? The Wildcats are one of them. Had one of the worst offenses in the country last year, one of the worst defenses in the country last year, and there's not going to be much improvement now with the tough schedule and really lack of talent that Pat Fitzgerald and his squad have. So now at home against Northwestern, Iowa should run away with this one. And then they go on the road to Purdue, which has major Big Ten West title implications. We've said time and time again how Wisconsin, Purdue, and Iowa all fare against each other. That's going to determine who wins the Big Ten West. It's key. And as you can see, Iowa gets them in back-to-back weeks. Well, they go on the road to take on Purdue. Let's keep in mind last year, guys, Purdue blew out Iowa. Purdue beat them 24-7 at Kinnick Stadium. Iowa was number 2 in the country at the time, undefeated, and Purdue walked in there and murdered them on their home turf. Now Iowa has to go to what should be a better Purdue team in West Lafayette. And I don't think they're going to be able to win it. Purdue is that good, guys. Purdue is a legitimate Big Ten title contender. Aiden O'Connell is the real deal. And this Purdue defense is so severely underrated that I don't believe Iowa has much success throwing or running the ball. Much success offensively, just like they didn't last year, only putting up 7 points at home. Purdue wins that game, and Iowa comes back home with their 3rd loss. Rutgers, Ohio State, Purdue, maybe wondering if they're done. Can they win the Big Ten West with 3 conference losses? It is possible. Depends on how Wisconsin's doing, depends on how Purdue's doing. And even if they haven't, even if they're done, they can still play spoiler, right? So regardless of what happens, they're going to beat Wisconsin. Again, home field advantage is going to be so key for Iowa here. Yes, they lost to the Badgers by 20 last year. Yes, Wisconsin has won 5 of the last 6. But I would venture to say right now that I believe Iowa has the better offense than Wisconsin. I believe with yes, both quarterbacks are experienced. Petrus and Graham Mertz, both are bad. Wisconsin might own the edge with the running game, but Iowa owns the edge when it comes to pass catchers, especially at tight end with Sam Laporta. And defensively, while Wisconsin did have the number 1 defense in the country last year, I don't know if they're going to be able to come on the road and snag this win because Iowa's right on up there with them when it comes to defense, especially in the secondary. Iowa shuts down the run, which they're pretty good at doing. Graham Mertz can't win the game through the air. The game is at home. They have the crowd on their side. They take down Wisconsin, and maybe their hopes are still alive to win the division. All hopes of that, though, will come crumbling down when they lose to Minnesota. And again, people will flip about that too, because why? Iowa has won 7 straight over the Golden Gophers, including last year when they beat them 27-22. But let's keep in mind that 5 of those 7 have been decided by 1 possession. Minnesota, especially under PJ Fleck, is getting so close to taking down Iowa. And now they finally do it. Minnesota's offense should improve drastically with a new offensive coordinator and their quarterback, their running back, and their top wide receiver all returning. The defense was third nationally last year, so similar to the game against Purdue or Ohio State or whatever. The offense for Iowa, which was their Achilles heel last year, will be it again when they face off against teams that have solid defenses, give or take. I know Wisconsin, you'll make the argument with Wisconsin, but Iowa, again, as we just mentioned, owns the offensive edge and the home field edge. They don't own that with Minnesota. They don't. So they'll fall to the Golden Gophers for their fourth loss. Come home on senior night to take on Nebraska, and I believe they do close out the year with a win. A lot of people are picking Nebraska to finally upset Iowa, finally get over the hump and beat them, but I'm not going that way. Iowa has won 7 straight over the Cornhuskers. 5, just like the Minnesota game, have been decided by 1 possession. Nebraska is trending in the right direction. They are getting better. But I do believe on senior night at Kinnick Stadium, Kirk Ferentz doesn't allow his squad to lose this game. And for many, this would be considered a disappointing year for Iowa. But you can close it out with a win over your rival and an 8th victory. And I believe they deliver. In a close 1-possession game, Nebraska still isn't there to come on the road and beat Iowa. The Hawkeyes close it out and finish the year at 8-4, which, per usual, is about average for the Hawkeyes. Every now and then they have that one special year. Maybe they win 10, 11 games. Maybe they have a down year, but 8-4 is pretty typical for Kirk Ferentz and Iowa City, and we believe that's exactly what will happen again in 2022. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Make sure to sign up for those today. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.